Hello, I'm Ian Stafford, and with me is the former England and British Lion rugby star Lewis Moody. We're here to preview round 3 of the Six Nations, exclusively for BetSafe. And Lewis, we've had a little break. I've missed you, but we're back. And it's promising to be another fantastic weekend of Six Nations rugby, beginning with Scotland versus Wales. And I can't call this one at all. It seems so incredibly tight.
Yeah, certainly the Scotland-France game. I was really hoping Scotland would sneak it past France at the end. There, they seem to be rallying well, but it just shows how France have come into the Six Nations. No one really expected a huge amount, and they really delivered. But Scotland v Wales, Wales have been the same. England had a phenomenal match against them last week. Wales really should have shut that game out. A great turnover on the line, a shocking kick from Davis, and a great finish from Elliot Daly. So it's an incredibly tough match to call. I do think Scotland go into this with, maybe the upper hand. I think Welsh confidence will be significantly damaged by that English defeat.
Okay, some interesting battles. The 15s, you've got Lee Halfpenny, who was an absolute star of the last Lions, against Stuart Hogg, who everybody seems to think is almost nailed on to be the fullback this time for the Lions.
Yeah, two very different players. Lee Halfpenny, very regimented. His kicking is second to none, although it's been a little bit wayward during this Six Nations. Hogg offers something completely different from the back for Scotland. Something slightly more exciting and impactful than you might get out of Halfpenny, although on his day can also be very elusive and incredibly efficient under a high ball, Lee Halfpenny. But Hogg for me at the minute just tipping the balance.
The other thing is the second rows. You've got Alan Wynne-Jones, who you've played against many times, potential Lions captain. And you've got the Gray brothers, Johnny and Richie, both having a great Six Nations so far. Johnny Gray tackled 28 times against the French. And of course you've got all the England second rows as well. I mean, this is an area in which Warren Gatland for the Lions is going to have one of those happy coaching dilemmas. But Alan Wynne-Jones against the Gray brothers in the lineouts as well, that's crucial.
Alan Wynne-Jones is, I think a lot of people thought would have been the natural Welsh captain when Warburton took over. We're talking 6 years ago. So he's fitted into that role very nicely. I'm sure there'll be a lot of debate about whether he'll then take that role on for the Lions, a la Martin Johnson. But an incredibly strong area for Warren Gatland looking to pick a side, especially when you consider, Launchbury, Itoje, who's playing out of position, to all intents and purposes at the moment at 6. I was very excited about seeing him play in the back row. He hasn't really got to terms with it as much as I would have liked, and he hasn't really delivered as much as I would have liked. So maybe we're learning a little bit more about Murray. Maybe his natural position is second row. So that throws another conundrum in there. If he goes on the Lions, will it be at second row? Will it be covered for the back row? You can't forget the Irish as well. There's a good pairing in there behind Rory Best, who's their talismanic hooker. So an exciting area, I think, for Warren Gatland, and looking forward to the summer, certainly.
You mentioned talismanic. The Scots have lost Greg Laidlaw, their captain, and a pretty good kicker as well, and a very good scrum half. They can't really afford to lose a player like him.
I think any team that wants to go and succeed at the highest level needs strength and depth, and to say that you can't lose a player like him, you will, and all teams have done during the course of this tournament. Sexton's gone for Ireland, goodness knows, Billy Vunipola, Maka Vunipola for England, to name a few. So one player should not make a significant difference to that Scottish side. They've got a group of players that played a large amount of rugby together now at Glasgow, and then mixing in with a couple of other players coming from clubs, whether it's the Southern Hemisphere or the Premiership. I'm excited about Scotland. I think Scotland should be excited about their chances, and they should believe that they can go out and beat Wales, rather than just it be an underdog story going into every game like it has been for too many years.
And on that point, they've both lost one game so far, but there's nothing to say that they could go on and win all their remaining games. It's going to be tough for Scotland. They've got to go to Twickenham, obviously. But for the Scots, they could conceivably finish second equal. And the Welsh, they've got Ireland at home, don't forget. So they could think, you know what, we could lose one game and still win the Six Nations. So a lot to play for, apart from pride.
And it'll be really interesting to see in that last weekend how the bonus points will come into it. You know, if teams do lose a game over this weekend and it starts becoming more level, you know, those bonus points will become all important. And
yeah, okay, so the draw is 22-1, and both Scotland and Wales are 11-10 on to win, which just goes to show how tight this game is perceived to be.
Evenly matched, but then we've made a lot of predictions, and I think a lot of the games have gone, you know, in the opposite direction to what we thought they would have done. Certainly, you know, that Ireland's first match, you know, England not getting the start they would have liked. Lots of different decisions, and Scotland overwhelming, you know, everyone in that first weekend, and almost doing it last weekend. So. You can understand why it's so close, because I think it's still so difficult to call, because there are so many teams playing well and snuffing out the opportunities that the so-called favourites have when they come into these matches.
Ireland versus France. Probably seems to be another tight game, maybe because it's in Dublin. That will give Ireland the edge. And after their hiccup against Scotland in the first round, okay, it was Italy, but they were utterly ruthless, weren't they?
Yeah, but you know, I don't think that prepares them well enough for this France game. You know, I've been really underwhelmed by Ireland so far. Yes, they dispatched Italy, but it's Italy, despite the progress that they've made, beating South Africa again, who were just incredibly poor during that autumn series. You know, they have been low on confidence. Players have not delivered when they've needed to. That being said, they have a good, experienced side that are capable of delivering on the day. But I just think France, you know, France want to get it right. You go back to that England-France match, the first 20, 30, 40 minutes, France dictated the pace of that game, got over the gain line with the big carries, Picamole having an absolutely blinding tournament as ever. And I think it's an exciting time for French rugby, and I do think France will sneak this match.
Do you? That's a very big call. Now, the Irish, I'm not saying that for 1 minute the Lions will be an all-Irish back row, but you could make an argument for it. CJ Stander, Jamie Heaslip and Sean O'Brien, outstanding back row. And the French have got Picamoles, but I guess, as is always the case, the battle of the breakdown is going to be massive.
Yeah, and Sean O'Brien is, you know, he's got two great qualities: big, strong ball carrier, you know, powerful and strong when he carries, and he's also incredibly abrasive over the ball in defence. CJ Stander's been, you know, a great find for Irish rugby. You know, losing, you know, Ferris to injury a couple of years ago, he's come in and really developed. And he's, you know, he's been there a long time now. He's, you know, he on his day is a world-class player. But you know, the quality of the back row in that French side as well, you know, led by Picamole. You know, both those sides pride themselves on their ability to carry the ball hard, but also damage the opposition in turnovers. So it'll be an interesting battle. You know, in terms of your point about the Lions, I certainly don't see it being an all-Irish back row. But again, for Gatland, more players playing consistently well creates a great problem for him when it comes to selection.
If you're right and the French were to win against Ireland in Dublin, I mean, they would be back, wouldn't they? That would be some statement. If they lose, but they lose in the way that they lost to England, you know, that's not the end of the world, is it? I mean, it's a must-win for Ireland, isn't it? Especially coming into this championships as probably joint favourites with England.
I would say absolutely. You know, if the Irish lose this, it will be, you know, it will be curtains to their dreams of a title of any sort. Yeah, so they've just been, you know, they've been not at the races this Six Nations. This game will determine how far they go from here. I think if France get it right, they will sneak it. It will be tight. You know, it'll be 3 to 5 points probably. But I think the French are building nicely because they came in as underdogs. No one really expected much. They weren't sure what to expect from France. They seem to have regrouped nicely over the last year under Guy Noves. So yeah, I do think it will be tight, but I think France will sneak it.
Wow. Now, if that's the case, it's going to be another great game. There's already been so many great games in this Six Nations. We're not even halfway through, but already is this shaping up to be one of the better Six Nations?
Well, certainly the last week. Sometimes it normally depends on the last weekend, doesn't it? How the last weekend goes, and is there an all-deciding game that we can watch and get really excited about?
Which could be Ireland v England.
Which would be fantastic, and one of the reasons you want Ireland to beat France. But I don't see it happening at the minute. But in terms of matches, for the neutral, that England-Wales game, I think must have been an exciting game to watch, because for all intents and purposes, Wales has done a job, snuffed out the attack. And
ditto England-France.
Well, absolutely. France looked dominant for the majority of that game, and then England clawed it back. Italy have stuttered and sort of fallen. They're the only side that haven't really offered. Scotland have continued to impress.
Scotland-Ireland was a great game.
Yeah, an absolute.
France-Scotland was a good game.
Yeah, so it has been a great tournament so far. But I think generally tournaments are decided on that last weekend and whether there's enough teams playing for silverware.
Well, Lewis, I have to say that you're going for a French win. The Bet-Safe odds are Ireland are 3-1 on, a draw is 22-1, and France is 5-2. I guess that's a reflection of home advantage. But 5-2 for France, the away team, reflects what you say, which is the French are going to give them some game.
I do hope so, and I'm excited about this match. Actually, one that could turn the cards for the French, I think, and their fortunes this season.
The final game of this weekend is on Sunday. It's at Twickenham. It's England versus Italy. Lewis, if I were to tell you that the odds are Italy to win in a two-horse race 40-1, a draw 100-1, and England to win 100-1 on. Does that reflect England's Six Nations campaign so far and Italy's campaign so far?
I think 100-1 on is a good reflection of how poor Italy are. I think actually at the moment, I think Italy came in with some really exciting hope and enthusiasm about what they'd achieved during the autumn. But as ever, for whatever reason, whether it's the lack of quality, consistency, coaches now, they certainly have a quality coaching side in Conor O'Shea and Mike Catt and others. There just seems to be a lot of work still required in that Italian dressing room and across probably the Italian game as a whole, if you really want them to start challenging in the Six Nations. A good call for possibly relegation and promotion, and Georgia, who are above them in the world rankings anyway, possibly coming in. But Italy, England, there's only one way it's going to go. It's going to be an absolute trouncing for England, and those odds reflect it and make it quite simple, I think.
Having been in the England team for so many years yourself, how do you approach a game like this? They've got two good wins. Probably nobody in the England camp has been fully satisfied in their performances so far. Although two good wins against two good teams is great going. Would you be full on here? Would you expect nothing else but a 80-minute performance and to be utterly ruthless in the way that they dispatch Italy?
Absolutely, ruthless is a great word. Something Clive always used to say, and I think Eddie Jones expects. At the start of the campaign, he spoke about England being daring. I don't think they have been. I think they've played within themselves a little bit, but the guys that have come off the bench for England have brought that daring, that desire to play. There are guys in the back line who have so much skill and talent at their fingertips. We just want to see it unleashed. And I think we'll see a number of changes coming into this game. And Ben Teo, who's been brilliant off the bench, James Haskell, Jamie George, Danny Kerr, all these guys will probably get an opportunity to play, and I think rightly so. They've been fantastic when they've come off, and I look forward to this game because of that, seeing a few other guys get the opportunity to start, and I think that's what this game needs to be about for England.
And I guess it's not a case of simply giving the extras, the reserves, a chance. It's about making sure that you've got 30, 35 players who can all be at the same level and do the job, which is what you need presumably to win a World Cup.
Absolutely. Well, Eddie Jones will be looking for players to push for their position. You know, I don't think any of those guys on the bench will see them as will see themselves as bench players. They will see themselves as starting, and this is an opportunity for a number of them, I hope, to go out and assert their claim for that shirt. You know, certainly Ben Teo's performance off the bench, you know, brings something very different. You know, akin to Manu Tuolangi, maybe with a little bit more ball playing ability. So I'm quite excited about that. The other one for me, Jamie George, I just think he's been applying so much pressure over the last 2 seasons to Dylan Hartley. You know, Dylan's done a wonderful job as captain, but I think Jamie is the person in the better form at the moment, and it'll be interesting to see if he's given a start, can he translate the performances he's had off the bench into an 80-minute performance? Because if he does, then it will give Eddie Jones a real decision to make, and I'm sure one that he'll be quite excited about.
Yeah, and Owen Farrell probably will be captaining against England. People have been impressed by how much he's come on against Italy. Thank you.
Would have been a good game.
England against England would be a better game. But Owen Farrell everybody's been impressed in the way he's come on over the last couple of years in terms of leadership. As you say, Jamie George performs, Owen Farrell performs as captain. That's a dilemma, isn't it?
It is, but it's not a dilemma. It's a good position to be in for a coach, because you've got so many players pushing for position, and I think that is why you become a successful side. That is why you become a great side, is because you have so many players desperate to play, pushing each other to perform at the best of their ability, knowing that if you have a poor day at the office, you will not possibly start the next match. And I think we know how much Eddie Jones respects and admires Owen Farrell for his leadership qualities and the way that he is the man that he is, the player that he is. So I think he would be a natural fit. Mara Itoje probably being groomed for a future role, although those two guys are both very young in their own right.
Exactly. Okay, so England are going to trounce Italy, according to Lewis Moody. By how much?
Well, I think England would be disappointed generally if they don't score more than 50 points. I think they will be more disappointed if they concede any tries at all. I think they will have certain targets, and under Paul Gustard, I know that the defence has been up and down a little bit, but significantly better in the last match, and I think one of their goals will be to stop them crossing the whitewash, the Italians.
Okay, so hideous afternoon at Twickenham for Italy predicted, and a very comfortable afternoon for England. That's it for this week. We'll see you in a couple of weeks' time for round 4 of the Six Nations.